Alrighty, so in this tutorial, what I'm going to do is show you how to basically uh, perform a rotoscope. And what that means is that you have a piece of footage. You can get that footage however you want, but you have a video file of some sort. And then basically you draw over top of it in order to get a certain kind of look. Okay, so example of that would actually be, let's see, I'll just open up this one as an example. Hopefully it'll open up. And maybe not. Wait, there it goes. It's probably a rather large file. Yeah, that's fine. An example of that would be something like this. So like this, I did inside of Photoshop. Okay, so this was for a short film that I worked on. But basically there was footage underneath and I just drew over top of it. Let's see if I can find the actual footage. If I can turn all these off. Oof, that's a lot. But basically on the bottom is just the, what is it? Control, Alt, oops. So Alt, there we go, Alt. Oops. Underneath it is basically the actual, oh, apparently I don't have the footage on there. Anyway, but basically you have footage underneath and you draw over top of it. Okay, so, anywho, that's what we're going to do. So I'm just going to show you how to do that. So, no. So you're going to want to create new. And what you're going to want to do is that you'll notice that we've been like, normally we've been working in pixels, or actually we've been doing by inches, and we've been doing like 6x9. Come on, like, or 9x6 or 6x9, and then we've been doing 300 ppi, right? So just because that's the typical kind of print that we would do, but that's actually these are typical photo ones. So notice that there's actually these options, right? There's different ones. Let's go ahead and use the film and video. Now, the two main ones that we could potentially use are either the HD 1080, which is typically like a Blu-ray player, is what it's going to run. 1280 is sort of like the low res version of HD. Still 16:9 ratio. You got to kind of decide how you want to work with this. If you don't have a very powerful computer, just go ahead and do the 720. If you have a more powerful computer, go ahead and try the HD 1080. But I'm just going to go ahead and do the 720 just because I'd rather do lower resolution. So I'm going to select that. 1280 by 720, 72 ppi is good. This all works. And I'll hit create. Boom. There we go. All right. So it has these guides on here, which I honestly don't really need, and they're actually going to be more in the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to view, and I'm going to turn extras off, and that will get rid of the guides. I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to make sure I'm on motion. That's the menu set. Normally we're on essentials, right? You can also do it this way, window, workspace, motion, and you can make your own as well, but just that way we're all set up for what we're doing. Good. Alright, so before, when we did the hand-drawn stuff, I did frame animation. This time we're actually going to want to create a video timeline. Okay, so just make sure it says create video timeline. Go ahead and click on it, and it will make a video timeline. Now, before you bring any of your footage in, what you want to do is find out what the frame rate is of the footage. And you can do that any number of ways. I'll show you the footage, I guess, that, let me see. I'm going to use this piece of footage here. This is just something crappy that I made in college, but so it's right here. You might be able to like right click and like get info if you're on a Mac, or go properties. Sometimes they'll have it in there. Let me see, details, says the length. Let me see. It doesn't say the frame rate, bit rate. That doesn't really help us too much. But also sometimes if you open it up, if it's like QuickTime or if it's different video, they might be able to tell you. More than likely, if you shot it on your camera, like on a phone or something, it's probably going to be show movie inspector. So it's probably going to be like 29.97 or see right here. So old style video was 29.97, ours would be like 30 frames per second. Okay, so it's 29.97, so that's what I'm going to use. That's great. So that's why I want to make sure that my timeline is set to that, so that way it's the same as the footage I bring in. So I'm just going to click on this little thing here, and what you want to do is go to set timeline frame rate and make sure that it's set to the correct amount. You can either use one of these pre-settings, or you can just manually type something in there, and this will switch to custom. But anyway, so 29.97 is fine. That's good. I'll hit OK. Just do that before you bring your footage in, because if you do it afterwards, it'll like make your footage all weird. It'll like cut it off, and it won't be very useful. So after we do that, what I want to do is actually bring the footage in. So I'm just going to go to Layer, and instead of doing like a new layer, which is just a normal raster image layer, there's actually an option for video layers. And I'm going to do a new video layer from File. Click on that. And then I'm going to navigate to my video. I'm just going to use this one here and open. And it's going to bring in this crappy video that I took of my brother here. So I'm just going to grab this one chunk here, right? So I don't want all the rest of this business. So it does have some video editing capabilities. I think I told you that before. And if you've used video editors, you probably will be somewhat familiar with what this looks like. But what I want to do is I'm going to cut off the beginning part because I don't really care that much. It's not a very good interview. Okay, so I'm just going to, I don't want the parts before this, right? So I'm going to put my time slider there. So I just click and drag this. Okay, then what we're going to do is I'm going to go to the menu, and I'm just going to say split at playhead. And it's going to cut it into 2 clips. It's going to cut this into that. And then I'm going to go to where I want it to end. So I'll say over here, and I'll just do the same thing again. Split at playhead. And now it's cut that into 3 spots. And I'm going to click on this one and hit delete. Delete. I'm going to click on this one and hit delete. And now I just have the piece of footage that I want. I'm just going to drag it over there. And now that's the clip that I'm going to draw over top of. Now, if you look, you can see it doesn't quite fit my composition. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust this. The nice thing is that even though this is obviously lower resolution than what I have here, it doesn't matter because I'm drawing over it. So even though if it doesn't look great, it's going to be harder to work with, but it's not going to affect the final quality because I'm not going to actually use the footage itself. So I'm just going to hit Control T for free transform. It's going to tell me it wants to be a smart object, which is fine because I'm not going to actually do anything to this specifically. And I'm just going to extend it, and then I'll hit enter, and there we go. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, let's go back to V for the move, and good. Okay, so there's my footage, and I'm going to draw right over top of this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead, and I'm just going to delete this layer just because. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a new layer. So I only have this one layer now, and I'm just going to go to, where are you? Layer, and video layers, and we're just going to do a new blank video layer. And this is the layer that we're going to draw on. So what I want to do is, it's going to be kind of hard to see my drawing because this thing is so bright. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to make a new layer again. I'm going to drag that down. You can see it's not a video layer. It's just an image. This one's a video layer. See how it's got a little film thing on it? So I'm just going to make a random layer here. I have it selected here. I'm just going to make this white. I'm going to use the paint bucket tool, and I'm just going to paint white in there. It's not going to look like anything because this layer's on, but basically I made it so that that's just white behind there. Okay, we could turn these off right now so you can see. Okay, that's all I really wanted to do. And let's actually collapse that. And I'm just gonna, you'll notice that when I hover over this, these little arrows pop up. That'll allow me to extend or not. So I'm just gonna extend it all the way so it's there the whole time. Okay, for the whole footage. Now, turn the layer above it. Select this guy, and I'm just gonna take the transparency down. Just so that, this is why I put the white behind it. Otherwise it would be the checkers behind it. You can see that's not very easy to draw, but having white makes it a little bit easier. Now, if your footage is white or something, you can use a different color. Just find white kind of makes the most sense to me, right? Okay, so that's good. So that's kind of set up. I don't really need to do anything with that. I'm going to go ahead and lock that. And I'll lock this one too, just so that I don't accidentally mess with it. Okay, this is the layer that I'm actually going to be doing the drawing on. Layer 1, okay? So I'm going to go up here, and I am just going to do this through just drawing over top of it, okay? So we're going to Control plus and space. Come on. Yeah, I don't need to do that. Cancel. Space. Bring it over here. I'm going to go to my brush, and I'm just going to do a regular brush and just make sure it's like hard or whatever. You can choose what you want to do for the brush because you can do it very painterly. I'm just going to do an outline and draw over top of it in a very crummy way, but just so you get the idea of how this works. So I'm just going to go ahead and just do black here for the color. And, okay, good. So then what I'm going to do is basically just draw over top of him, right? And you could do a lot fancier than what I'm doing. I'm obviously just going to kind of do what this is, or just, what I'm seeing here. What I would tell you though is this: I could make it like draw an elephant over top of them instead of actually using you know, his actual what he looks like, right? Or you can even take footage of somebody wearing a mask and then draw over top of it and then add the parts that you want. So, but for what I'm doing, I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of do something like that, right? So that's one frame. Now I want to do the next frame, and I will draw all of it, right? Now, what you can do is you can just move this little, you can move this little slider, but it might be kind of hard to do. What's easier is to use the arrow keys, but if you use the arrow keys by default, that just moves things. But you can actually turn on the hotkeys for working with film. So if you look down here, you can see, oh, mine's already on. But you go here and you go enable timeline shortcut keys. The little menu, enable timeline shortcut keys. And now what that will do is that when I hit the right arrow, it'll go to the next frame. Left arrow goes to the previous frame. And I can go right through my drawing. So I'm just going to hit the right arrow, goes to the next one. And I'm just going to go ahead and draw my next frame. Right? And I'm going to do a bad job, but it doesn't really matter. It's honestly really forgiving. And in some ways, actually, if you draw more poorly, it will actually look a little bit better. Now, I would, if you were going to do kind of just a drawerly one like this, I would suggest, you know, putting a little more thought into what your brush was, and, you know, try to do like a more of an interesting, neat look. In my case, I'm not honestly all that worried about it because I just want to get the idea. So I can hit the left arrow and then right arrow. Oh, I'm hitting control. That's why. I'm like, why is it not happening? Oh, it went all the way to the end. Hang on a second. Okay. So, boom, left, right, and then I'll do the next one. And you can see, not necessarily doing a great job, but, you know, doing a job. It's got to count for something. So I'm just trying to do this quickly. You know, take more time when you go to do it, but I just don't want to waste all your time with me, you know, farting around with it, because that's probably not going to be, you know, super useful to you. Right? And so just imagine I try to pretend like I did a good job, so then I'll do the next arrow. I'm just going to do a couple of these so you get the idea of how it works. Okay? And, you know, if you do this too, have fun with it. Like, don't just do a direct drawing over like I'm doing. Like, maybe add horns onto the person or something, you know? Like, you could do, like I said, you could change it a whole bunch, because the whole point of it is to be, you know, doing something a little bit more interesting, not just doing a direct drawing. But you might find this is, you know, it's one of those things where it's kind of soothing because you're kind of like painting by colors. You're just tracing stuff. So it's not. So now you can see, right, I got a couple of frames. Doesn't look great. Now, what you might want to do is actually color it as well. So you could do that. So I could go to like the paint bucket here and then maybe try to find some sort of fleshy, you know, let's do this color. And I can try to paint bucket. You're going to see it's not going to fill correctly because basically I've got all these little gaps in there. So I'd have to, oops, Control Z, B. I'd have to fill these little gaps wherever there's holes that might leak from. Right? So, let's see, G. Right? So I could fill, oops, right? So I could fill all these pieces in here, and you could do, you know, and I could paint it all the way through, and you know, and then when you would play it, you would see basically your little piece of footage. Now, if you hit this little thing that lets you see more of your frames, so there's 1, 2, I don't know how many frames I drew. Oops, stay over. I lost it. Let's go back. There we go. Let's pull this back up. Okay. So I only did this much. Okay. But if I play, the cool thing is too is if you do a thing where like you could have he's actually, you can hear it, so you could do lip syncing. You could have like an actual thing of someone talking and draw over top of it and create like a really neat look. And I'm sure you've seen that music video where there's that guy and it's like, take on me, and like I think it's like in a grocery store and it's all drawn and stuff. There's been a lot of spoofs and things of that, but that's the kind of thing you could do. You could do whatever you want. Like, remember when we took the when we did the digital painting stuff, you could do some really cool, fun stuff with this. But I would really try to explore the look of it, because that's what's changing it from being just a piece of footage. If you just try to draw it exactly like what it is, then you're not really doing anything to it. Then why are you doing it? You know what I mean? Other than to obviously get a grade, but that's just not as good. It's not as interesting, you know. I highly suggest you know, do stuff with that. Like, actually make an effort. Let me see. Is there anything else that would be of any value? Okay, so basically you would go ahead and do that, and then you can, and if you want to, you can go ahead and add more layers. So I could do another layer, do another video layer, so video layers, and I could do another video layer from a file and combine it and draw over top of that one. And then when I was done, I would take this one, turn this one off, so all I have is him, right? So just that footage. I'm gonna go ahead and add another one, layer, video layers, new blank layer, okay? And then on this one, you know, I could draw. Let me go to brush here and could draw, you know, like, you know, bubbles, right? And then do boom, and then let me see, boom, and then make that bigger. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's put you back in here. There we go. But you can see I could add stuff to it, you know what I mean? And then, you know, do something where I try to, like, you know, you could do something really fun with it. So if you want to use multiple layers, just like you would use layers inside of Photoshop, you can totally do that. No problem with that. But try to just play around with it. This is another way of working. You can just rotoscope a small little clip. I would tell you to try and do something as small as possible. Don't try to do anything too large, because you're gonna see it's gonna take a really long time. But this is one of those things where you could, like, watch like a Netflix thing, like Tiger King. If you haven't seen it, you totally should. You could watch something like that. You know, some sort of garbage TV, and then just be doodling on here while you're just kind of relaxing, chilling. You know what I mean? So it's an easier thing to do, and it's sort of, to me personally, I find it a little bit cathartic. So you should generally enjoy it. If you have any issues with it, let me know. When you are done with it and you're happy with the look, you know, so you could do another layer. Like if you want your background, you could actually paint a background back here, right? Try to explore with it. But once you are done, all you have to do is just basically click this little thing here. You could save this as it is and it will work. Just save the PSD. But you can also render the video. I would like both if you can help it. Give me the PSD and the video. And the settings that it has by default are perfect. Just go ahead and use those. The only thing is where it saves it to. So right now mine's going to save to documents. You might want to change where it's select folder, change the name of it. But other than that, those two things, you can just click render when you're done, and it will render out your little clip, and you'll have a cool little animation that you can show anybody. All right, so good luck with that.